folks, I don't normally do top 10 Game of the Year lists because, well, I'm too lazy and can't be expected to keep up such a rigorous schedule of doing at least one video per year. However, someone on Twitter was asking me what games other than Sonic Forces I enjoyed this year, and I was watching someone else streaming and doing their top 10 Games of the Year list, and it got me thinking about it, because 2017 has been a phenomenal year for gaming. One of the best in a long freaking time. Maybe not exactly 1998 level, but it's good. And as such, I decided to cobble together my own list. Now, this is completely unscripted off the top of my head. All I did was write down the games, which I cobbled together, December 31st at 7 p.m. while watching a stream. So this is far from professional, but here we go. My top 10 games of the year for 2017. Coming in at number 10, it's ARMS. And this one made the list almost entirely because of that Christmas Eve stream. See, they just released a new character, Dr. Coyle, and so I decided to pop the game in, give her a shot, and I was like, wow, I guess the charm of this game really wore off. I'm really not feeling it. It wasn't fun to play, and I was like, wow, I guess this really was a flash in the pan. And then I went back to Twintel, and oh egad, I practically got addicted again. ARMS is a really fun game. It's clearly in sort of the arena fighter genre, like the Gundam Versus series, and the Naruto, what are those Naruto games called? The more recent Naruto games that CyberConnect does is in that same zone, and it's very much a simplified fighter with no real combos or special moves, so to speak of. It's all just spacing and firing off your arms, but it manages to take that simplicity and really, really make it work. You couple that with the fact that it has 4 players simultaneous split screen, phenomenal netcode, beautiful world and character designs. It's an absolutely fun game, and it definitely scores the number 10 slot. Coming in at number 9, Raw Data. Took 1 year on the nose since the PSVR launched for them to give me the game I wanted, something where I get to swing a sword around. Okay, Dwiver did it a little bit earlier, but Dwiver was garbage. Raw Data, however, even though the PSVR version is actually kind of gimped, not only having weaker graphics, but they actually don't have any of the multiplayer modes, and they're not 100% sure if they can patch them in or not, but they might. Even still, Raw Data is kind of the gold standard for me and PlayStation VR games. It sounds like it's just a wave shooter, because, you know, you're teleported into an arena and you're defending this core from waves of enemies. However, the fact they have 4 different, very fleshed out characters with multiple different techniques, it actually has a good storyline with likable characters, phenomenal presentation. The game still has some hiccups, like it has a bad tendency right now to, when you start the game, you spawn in with this screen in your face that kind of hurts your eyes for a second. But even in spite of this, this game is pretty much what I wanted out of both motion control and VR. It is a phenomenal starting point because I can play as a cyber ninja chick who has laser swords that I can throw at enemies, or, you know, actually walk up to them and chop them up with it. And you can even dual wield swords later in the game, or wield your sword two-handed, which I think puts more force behind it. It's pretty darn great, and in a lot of ways, it kind of makes me feel like I'm inside the minds of PSO, with the way some of the robots you're chopping up look, and the fact that I'm a robot chick wielding a laser sword. And oh egad, VR PSO would be amazing, but this will tide me over until then. Raw Data is sort of my VR game of the year pick, because Sirento has not been released on PlayStation VR yet, but it is coming, and I can't wait. Coming in at number 8, it's Puyo Puyo Tetris Dreams Do Come True. Egad, this game almost made me cry. See, Puyo Puyo Tetris has been out in Japan for a while. I imported it back on PS3. And, like, compared to the other Puyo games, it's not exactly Puyo Puyo 15th Anniversary or, Sun and Yan and all of that. But it was a very fleshed out game, and being able to fight Puyo Puyo versus Tetris is just a phenomenal thing. Because I'm one of those people that's really not good at Tetris, but I love Puyo Puyo, and quite a few of my friends are that way. Meanwhile, I know quite a few people who cannot play Puyo Puyo worth a crap, but they love Tetris, and being able to fight Tetris versus Puyo Puyo is phenomenal. But more than that, I really liked the story mode. The localization on it was solid. I actually compared it against, if you look on YouTube, you can actually find fan subs of the story mode because it has been out for so many years in Japan. I looked at the fan subs and compared them against the actual official translation, and they did a good job. The voice acting was mostly good, characters were on point, script was pretty accurately translated, you know, a little bit of flair here and there, but nothing too working designs, and it was just so great being able to see the classic Puyo Puyo characters, and everyone else, actually represented on screen in America accurately with their classic personalities, and oh, it's so happy. I've literally been waiting for a non-butchered Puyo Puyo game to hit the States since I was, cripes, was I even in junior high? I might have been in elementary school since I was waiting for a game like this, okay? Like, it actually almost made me cry. I was so happy to have Puyo Puyo Tetris because of the story mode. Yes, now mind you, I don't actually like the story mode because it keeps forcing me to play Tetris. I wish it had a more classic Puyo Puyo story mode where you, like, pick a character and just do versus matches. That would have been a lot better for me. But in terms of seeing the characters and the writing and all of that in English, it made me so, just so freaking happy. And yes, I know about, Mina de Puyo Puyo on the GBA. Trust me, I own a couple copies of that, as do all of my friends, which was technically the first time the classic Puyo Puyo cast was ever seen in America, and that's, Puyo Pop on GBA. And if you're unfamiliar, I hate Puyo Puyo Fever. I like Amite's hat, and now that the classic cast is back, I don't mind it as much. But I felt the Fever mode was an utterly broken mechanic, and the cast of characters came off as just cheap knockoffs, and so when Puyo Pop Fever was one of the only Puyo Puyo games we got in America with an ear-shattering dub and those awful characters in, like, one of the most awful Puyo Puyo games, yeah, I wasn't particularly happy. So it's good that we got, like, a real Puyo Puyo game. It made me very happy. Moving right along, coming in at number 7, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This is going to be a running theme on this list, but I was not a fan of the previous Xenoblade games. The original Xenoblade Chronicles just kind of came off to me as Final Fantasy XII, but not as good. And Xenoblade Chronicles X was more enjoyable, because I got to make a custom character and I was promised giant robots. So that was nice, but I really hate non-action RPGs where you only play as one character. In fact, that's why I don't like most MMORPGs. So, the Xenoblade series really didn't appeal to me until Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where the new timing elements to the combat make it way more enjoyable to play it, because you see, your character does a 3-hit combo, and if you do your skills on one of the combo hits, it enhances the strength of the skill, and if you do it on the 3rd hit, it gets, like, super enhanced. And on top of that, you're constantly popping off these super moves that have these little mini QTEs to boost their effect. And it's like, this really works out for me. As of right now, I have spent 112 hours in the game. Most of the time sitting at the grinding pier, desperately grinding to try to get Dahlia. No luck yet, but I can now safely say this is the most time I have ever spent playing a single-player RPG ever in my entire life. I don't normally beat these games, and I've spent more time than it takes to. I still haven't beaten Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I'm stalled at that pier, and I ain't moving until I get Medallia, okay? I will quit this game before I make a move without Dahlia, okay? But, yeah, needless to say, the blade distribution is kind of BS because you've got these common blades and you have these rares and you don't really have any uncommons, and the commons are just so garbage. Like, come on! Give me, like, different heads and bodies and color schemes. You've got 15 different voice/personality types, but only, like, 5 different heads tops? Give me a break. But even still, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has proven to be a very enjoyable RPG, and some of the longest time I have spent playing a game. It's still topped by, you know, Phantasy Star Online and Rumble Rose's Double X, but it's pretty up there. Moving right along, coming in at number 6, it's Ys 8. Now, the Ys series was something I played. The first one I played was Wanderers from Ys on Super Nintendo, and that game is a gigantic pile of trash. And I tried Ys 1 and 2 on the DS, and I tried Ys 1 and 2 on the actual Turbo Duo. And I just wasn't really feeling this series until I played Ys Origin, which blew my mind just from how well it controlled. Oh yeah, I also played Ys 7, which I really, really liked because, oh, you god, that game is fast. Ys 8 isn't quite as fast as Ys 7, but oh, what a blast it is, because it still goes so fast it could practically be a Sonic RPG. Seriously, Ys 8 is how you do a Sonic RPG right, and I can't wait for them to retranslate the game early next year, because apparently they botched the translation so hard, they've had to completely redo the translation and release it as a patch. But I love the speed of the game. You can run so fast, you can do attacks so fast, enemies are knocked out so fast, the music is phenomenal, it's just such a rush. I don't really care about the writing or the characters. It is a very good feeling action RPG where I just run around chopping things up and have fun, fun, fun. Ys 8 has been an absolute blast for me. Coming in at number 5, Persona 5. You know, I've always wanted to like the Shin Megami Tensei series, but this games in me never really grooved. In fact, I wasn't kidding when I said Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth is the Shin Megami Tensei game I wish was a Shin Megami Tensei game. I wish those games were more like Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. That game was really super fun, and you know what? I still stand by that. I still do like that game gameplay-wise more than Persona 5. Because I likes me some monster training games, okay? But me and Persona have a weird history, because back in junior high and high school, I knew a guy who was obsessed with Persona 1 and wanted the Shin Megami Tensei series in America, and I played Persona 2, and then when Persona 3 came out, it was really awkward because it was so not Persona. I still wish Persona 3, 4, and 5 were called, like, Shin Persona, because they are not the same as Persona 1 and 2. And I refuse to call Persona 1 and 2 bad, and the people who do are jerks, but they are a completely different game from 3, 4, and 5. But I hated Persona 3. Guess why? That's right, turn-based combat, but I only get to play as one character? Screw that. And Persona 4 fixed that problem, but unfortunately, the pacing on it was terrible. That game takes like 2 hours from when you start it to when you actually get to run around and fight monsters, because the majority of the intro of that game is just slow-paced mundanity. Like, it completely turned me off, coupled with the fact that I did not like the character designs for Persona 4. I am sorry. And it was a very orange game. You know, everything was very afternoon-y. I didn't like Persona 4. I know a lot of people love the characters and the writing of Persona 4, but it didn't gel with me. No pun intended. But Persona 5 comes out and I decide, why not? I'll give it another shot. Yo, this is the Persona after Persona got popular, and wow, the presentation, of course, is utterly nuts. The character designs are some of the best I've ever seen in the Shin Megami Tensei series, and it's just, the pacing is way better, it's way more interesting to me, because it doesn't just start with, here is boredom, it starts with action, it starts with getting you hooked and involved, and it gets you to the game so very much faster than Persona 4 ever did. I understand that Persona 4's story and characters were more interesting to some people, and I completely understand that. But Persona 5, that's the one I like. In fact, I really wish I knew where I put my copy, because I'd like to get back to that, but I've misplaced it. I've been half tempted to rebuy it a couple times. Anyway, coming in at number 4, as many other saner people's top pick of the year, Nier Automata, which I have to be honest, this one's a bit of my own personal shame. First and foremost, I regret not reviewing Nier the original back when it came out, because I actually bought the original Nier launch day. And if you look way back on the GameBabble blog, you will see I made a post where I said, Nier is either going to be one of the worst games ever made or the most mind-bending cult classic ever. And I was completely right. The game came out to middling reviews, but I was playing it and it was blowing my mind with its likable characters, ridiculous shifts in genre, fantastic music, and let's just be honest, it's the best game Cavia ever made. I've played a lot of Cavia's games like Bullet Witch, Beatdown, Fists of Vengeance, Drakengard, and they all had really awful stiff controls. Nier was the first one they made that actually controlled decently, thanks in large part to that fantastic dodge roll that just cancels everything. I loved the original Nier. I told all my friends, and none of them believed me, and the one that actually gave it a chance just sort of looked at it as the Deadly Premonition of RPGs and didn't consider it as good as Deadly Premonition. I'm like, what the heck is wrong with you? And of course they didn't pick it up until after it hit bargain bins for $25, as it promptly tanked in America due to its piss-poor reviews. So it must have been mind-shattering to people when Nier Automata was announced at that E3. I remember laughing my ass off, because, Platinum announced so many games at that E3, and it's like, what, Platinum, Nier Automata, what? But unfortunately, I have to be honest, I haven't played a whole lot of it, and that's mostly because I was really pissed off at the reception to the game on two fronts. Number one is all these Johnny-come-latelys talking about how great Yoko Taro is and how much they love these games, who clearly never played the original Nier, especially any who bashed the original Nier. Look, the original Nier didn't play phenomenally, but it played passably. It was a solid, okay game with, fantastic characters and writing. And that was sort of my big problem, is the characters in Nier Automata are not as good as the characters in the original Nier. I know I'm weird for this one, but I like Yoko Taro for his sense of humor, and I found the original Nier to be a way funnier game. Oh yes, I know how freaking dark that game is, but Papa Nier and Grimoire Weiss are probably some of my favorite video game characters of all time, and 2B and 9S they did not stack up, no matter how much I wanted to like them. And then you get to the gameplay element. A lot of people saw this as Platinum's grand return after doing all these crappy license games, that terrible Star Fox Zero, and there's still so many people who think, Platinum has this shaky output. I'm not even that big of a Platinum fan. I've called Platinum overrated in the past. I do not like most of their games all that much, especially their Capcom output. I actually don't like God Hand, and found Beautiful Joe to be frustrating because there were too many puzzles and not enough action. And I actually outright don't like Devil May Cry because there's not enough action in it and the stage design is terrible. So this should give you an idea. But when people are like, oh, they have such shaky output because they made that terrible Avatar game and Star Fox Zero, it's like, effing really? Because I can tell you right now, the problem with Star Fox Zero, for the most part, was not Platinum's fault. That was mostly Nintendo being goofy about it, although the bosses are actually the worst part of the game, so maybe it can be blamed on Platinum. But I did not get all the people who are like, oh, Platinum's really fallen from grace. Platinum's so terrible, they made all these terrible licensed games, but now they're back with Nier Automata, and, technically, yes, it is the game that saved the company. But the reason I have a big beef with this is whenever people bash their licensed games, they talk about Legend of Korra, and they talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they sort of gloss over one of them. And that's Transformers Devastation, which is one of the best games Platinum Games has ever made, and I have absolutely no qualms with saying that Transformers Devastation plays better than Nier Automata. So STFU! No, and I ain't taking that back. I mean that with every fiber of my being. So I actually found Nier Automata to be slightly disappointing because I was hoping the combat would be a bit meatier. My biggest beef with it, though, is I hate the way 2B's dodge feels. It is nowhere near as good as the dodge from the original Nier. I loved his air roll. The original Nier dodge felt faster and more responsive. There feels, even though technically there isn't a delay, visually there is a delay in 2B's dodge that makes it way, way less visceral and satisfying than the original Nier dodge, or especially the Transformers Devastation dodge, which is like another really, really good dodge. And my other beef is the fact that I felt that the genre shifts in Nier Automata didn't feel as natural as they did in the original Nier. The thing that made the original Nier so amazing was the fact that it constantly and smoothly, seamlessly shifted between a bunch of different game genres while not actually changing the gameplay at all. It's weird to see this sort of universality in all these different kinds of games. The fact that this was a game that could say, The Legend of Zelda, Resident Evil, Super Mario Brothers, and Wild Guns are secretly all the same game and you just don't know it. That was sort of the overall feeling you got from playing the original Nier, and Nier Automata completely and utterly lacks that. The genre shifts are too obvious, they're too rigid, they're not as smooth, and they change the gameplay a little bit too much so you don't feel the same universalness to those genre shifts. I know it sounds like I'm talking out of my ass, but still, that's one of my beefs. Basically, Nier Automata is the Sonic Generations to the original Nier's Sonic Unleashed. Because that's been one of the things I bring up, is that Sonic Generations as a whole was a better game, but the Sonic Unleashed Day stages are still the best 3D Sonic has ever been, and they had the most seamless transitions between 2D and 3D, and it's sort of the same thing with the original Nier versus Nier Automata. And speaking of Sonic, it's time! Coming in at number 3, it's Sonic Forces. But wait, didn't you say this was your game of the year? It got blindsided by a last-minute release and a technicality. We will get to them, but yes, Sonic Forces is some of the most fun I have had all year. I played it for like 2 weeks straight and completely burnt myself out on it, but it was an absolute blast. See, you know how most people in their top 10 games of the year list, the way they talk about Sonic Mania and how that game was just pure fun for them? That was Sonic Forces for me. Sonic Mania just didn't do it for me. I recognize it as being a technically way superior and admirable game, but in retrospect, I don't have that much of an attachment to classic 2D Sonic. I played it when it came out, but it wasn't really my thing. I was all about, in a way, I was all about the 3D Sonic. I like Sonic Adventure 1. I like Sonic Adventure 1 so much that I hate Sonic Adventure 2. But I was more attached to Sonic Adventure 1 than any of the other Sonic games. And I like Sonic in 3D, even though I recognize it is horribly flawed. And Sonic Forces is definitely a horribly flawed game. But it is better than most of the 3D Sonics of the past. The soundtrack is my favorite soundtrack of any Sonic game ever. Yes, the classic Sonic stages kind of dropped the ball, but everything else is just, Like, the Avatar stages are like the new Sonic R for me, and the modern Sonic stages are this Eurobeat butt rock hybrid that just blows my mind. You have to understand, my favorite musical genre of all time is cheesy vocal Sonic music, followed by Eurobeat. So you give me a game that has cheesy vocal Sonic music and Eurobeat? Love the soundtrack. The storyline, complete trash. They had so many interesting concepts, like who was this edgelord, who was this friggin' edgelord infinite character who sounds like Grimoire Weiss? And what is the mysterious power of the Phantom Ruby? And it seemed like so amazing. And then when you find out the truth about both of them, they completely drop the ball. It's an embarrassment. The entire plot of Sonic Forces is an embarrassment that is taken way too seriously, and I love it. I freaking love it. It was a laugh a minute, and the stages had a good sense of speed, and they were fun, and I didn't get frustrated by them. I had a good time, and I got to collect custom character parts and build a custom character. Sonic Forces was some of the most fun I've had all year. It was an absolute blast. I'm sorry, Nier Automata, and that's gonna piss some people off. As good as Nier's soundtrack is, it's not cheesy vocal Sonic music. Sorry. So, coming in at number 2 was the last-minute game that blindsided Sonic Forces, Romancing Saga 2. Now, you have to understand, Final Fantasy Legend 2 is my favorite RPG of all time, and one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. I love Final Fantasy Legend 2, and technically, that is the second entry in the illustrious Saga series. In Japan, that game is Saga 2. And after really sitting down and thinking about it, I realized that my ideal game would be Saga 2, but better. And that got me looking at the Saga series again, because I remember playing Saga Frontier back when it came out, and not really liking it. So I went out and picked up Saga Frontier, and I still don't like it. And I still don't like Saga Frontier 2, or Unlimited Saga, or the remake of Romancing Saga 1. But Romancing Saga 2 gets released digitally on all these different systems. It had never been released before in America. The fan translation is hard to find and incredibly rough and shaky, and I don't know where it came from. So, for many people, this was their first chance of playing Romancing Saga 2, even though technically it came out last year on iPhone and Android, no one gave a crap. But now they've taken the iPhone Android port, quickly slapped it onto PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC, though I hear the PC port is kind of shaky. I picked it up on my Switch, popped it in, and this is the game I wanted out of Saga all along. A lot of my love comes from one unusual fact. After you get through those first 2 generations, it's nothing but generic character classes. That might sound like a downer to most people, but I love generic character classes. I love make-a-party RPGs, the ones where, you choose from a bunch of different character classes and put together your own dream RPG team, like Final Fantasy 1. Final Fantasy 1 is actually one of my favorite Final Fantasies. I love games like that. I love building a custom party out of generic character classes. The only thing that would be better is if I could actually customize them, like Dragon Quest IX, one of my other favorite RPGs of all time. But, yeah, so Romancing Saga 2 is kind of like a super challenging, hyper-evolved Final Fantasy 1. Your Emperor is you play an Emperor and you choose from a couple different generic character classes, and when your Emperor dies and there's a generation skip, you choose the next Emperor out of a bunch of different generic character classes. They pass on their traits. And you have just a castle full of generic character classes you can slap onto your party, and as you complete quests, you unlock more generic character classes you can add to your party, including freaking lizard men. And after you put together your party, you just, you go walk around town, find some quests to do, and you go out there and you freely go on quests. There's, the story is very sparse, obviously, with a bunch of generic classes. There's not a lot of character development. It's just find quests, do them, expand your land, get more classes, build up for the final battle. Along the way, you're unlocking piles and piles of skills, which after every generation, they get taught at your dojo and can be passed on to your next set of characters. So you're constantly, building new parties, going out doing quests, and the quests, like, the time on them is wonderful. The dungeons are actually kind of small. The quests are most of them are just individual quests, and they wrap up quickly. There's a very good sense of exploration and progress, and due to the fact the enemies scale to your level, kinda, sorta, it doesn't have traditional levels. You level up based on what you do. Basically, it's like Final Fantasy II, minus the hitting yourself in the head with a stick in order to raise your hit points. Your hit points just go up when they go up in this game. Akitoshi Kawazu learned his lesson, but yes, this game is made by the same person who made the infamous Final Fantasy II. Saga series is his baby. And it's where he gets to be experimental. But, yeah, like, the enemies are designed to be hyper challenging. In fact, you get all your different stats back, all your hit points and magic points and, well, no, not your magic points, but you get all your hit points back and get cured of all your status ailments after every single battle. So that means that you go into every battle almost fresh. However, every time you run out of hit points, it costs you a life point, and there is permadeath, which makes sense when you've got just a crew of generic characters. There's a good sense of challenge from just entering random battles and the freedom and everything. It just comes together beautifully. Now, the game is caked with flaws. Yes, you see the enemies on the world map, there are no random battles, but somehow that actually leads to an even higher encounter rate than if there were random battles. The game is completely unexplained to you. There's no real guide. You need to learn from someone how to play this freaking game. It just throws you in the ocean and tells you to swim, but it does it slightly less than most Saga games, so that's nice. It has a very good intro, and there's a journal you can look at to try to figure out what you should probably do next. But there are so many things that the game doesn't tell you. Like, you'd never think to go in the fireplace in the weapons shop. That wouldn't occur to you. So, the game is a bit on the obtuse side, but I am loving it. In fact, if this game, guaranteed, if this game had actually come out in America back when it was new, it came out in Japan in 1993, so 1993, 1994, 1995, if it came out in North America at that time, it would have been one of my favorite RPGs of all time. It would have been an absolute classic. It would have been a very interesting world to live in if this had been the case, and I really, really wish it was. I can only imagine the kind of crazy adventures me and my sister would have gone on with this game. I sincerely regret the fact that this game was not a part of my childhood. Just knowing how me and my sister played our RPGs and the freedom this game provides and the fact that it has lizard men in it. I would have loved it as a kid. It absolutely would have been my favorite Super Nintendo RPG. And you know what? Even now, even today, it still holds up. I am considering this one of easily in my top 10 favorite RPGs of all time. I absolutely like it more than Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI because I'm a big fan of the Make-a-Party RPG. And in many ways, this is the game I've been looking decades for. This is what I wanted Etrian Odyssey to be when I picked it up. This is not my dream RPG, but it's in that same ballpark. I still like Final Fantasy Legend 2 more. I mean, that game lets you play as a slime, okay? And the DS remake of Legend 2, that was only released in Japan, but thank goodness, what was it, like Crimson Nocturne or something? Did a fan translation of it. Thank you very much for that, by the way. That one, very good as well. They also mostly finished a translation of the Final Fantasy Legend 3 remake, which made me actually like Final Fantasy Legend 3, but I still like that Legend 2 remake more. But, unquestionably, Romancing Saga 2, it is looking to be in my top 10 favorite RPGs of all time. Probably my favorite RPG of Super Nintendo Origin. I am liking what I'm seeing. I'm very hooked. I'd love to review it, but I feel like I need to at least see the kind of frustration the final battle is going to bring. but still Romancing Saga 2 utterly blindsided me, did manage to top Sonic Forces. But it's only number 2. What could possibly be taking the number 1 spot? Well, I want you to think back to the fact that the Nintendo Switch launched this year, and there was a certain launch title that would certainly sell me on the system. That's right. Coming in at number 1, the game of the year for 2017 is Waku Waku 7! Yes, that's right, Waku Waku 7 was released as part of the Arcade Archive series for the Nintendo Switch practically at launch, marking the first time Waku Waku 7 has ever been released outside of arcades in North America. And considering it's Waku Waku 7, of course it's Game of the Year. Why didn't I realize that earlier, you ask? Well, I figured it was just a given. Look, Waku Waku 7 is Game of the Year all years, so when I say something is Game of the Year, you know it's running for second place because it's competing against Waku Waku 7. But this year, Waku Waku 7 actually has a good excuse to be on the Game of the Year list because this has been its first North American release, and how can any game possibly compete with a re-release of Waku Waku 7? If you do not have Waku Waku 7 on your Nintendo Switch, you are doing it wrong. What are you doing wrong? All of it. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. This very country was founded on the belief that you should be playing Waku Waku 7 right now. How can we possibly make America great again unless everyone is playing Waku Waku 7? With phenomenal character designs, fantastic animations that barely are showable on YouTube due to just their sheer smoothness, bright poppin' colors, a wonderfully fleshed out world, one of the best soundtracks in fighting game history. Waku Waku 7 legitimately deserved better than this Arcade Archives release. But we takes what we can get, as not everyone has realized the sheer genius and wonder that is Waku Waku 7. And thus, Waku Waku 7 is Game of the Year 2017. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Gel, and boy howdy have you been GameBabbled. See ya, and Happy New Year 2018! Let's hope it can compete with 2017, because, whew, that was a good year. See ya!